Will Maryland football land a top 25 class?
You are Locked On Terps, your daily podcast on the Maryland Terps, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, everyone? I'm Tre Moore, video content creator for 247 Sports and InsideMarylandSports.com, and host of Locked On Terps for the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. So thank you for making us part of your day. And today's episode is brought to you by the Gametime app. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Maryland football recruiting is on an absolute heater right now. And I want to talk about, will the Terps finish with a top 25 class when it is all said and done, when everybody is signed to this Terps 2025 class? And I really do believe that Maryland football can land in the top 25 when the recruiting classes are done, when signing day hits and everyone is signed. I believe that this can be a top 25 class in the entire country. And I think that's a perfect mark for Maryland to aim for. I think our recruiting, we're never going to be a top 5. We're never going to be a top 10 type of team. We're just not that type of recruiting team. We don't have that type of resources. We don't have that type of NIL money. We just aren't there as a program, which a lot of you guys already know. But I do believe that being around 25th, 26th, 24th, 23rd is really where we want to be and where we can kind of take this program to the next level. We've seen this program be pretty good the last 3 years. 3 straight bowl games. We've had the all-time Big Ten passing leader in Talia. We've had winning seasons. We've seen Coach Locksley build this thing pretty good. And our recruiting classes have been good. We found a bunch of really good players. We found a couple of underrated players. Actually, I would say not a couple, a good amount of underrated guys that probably could have gotten recruited more. But at the end of the day, we want some of the big dogs. We want some of the highest recruited players out there. We want some of the highest recruited players in the DMV. And I think that we're starting to heat up in our 2025 class. And I think that this is going to be the best class that we've seen Coach Locksley have ever at his time in Maryland, which makes sense. As time goes on, you want to progress. You want to continue to get better. You don't want his best class to be 3 years ago. You want it to be in the future. You want it to be ahead. And I believe that 2025 class in the future, when it's all said and done, will be just around the top 25 and also Coach Locksley's best class yet. We've already gone a huge way in being able to do that, starting with Malik Washington, 4-star quarterback. That's the perfect start if you want to land a top 2025 class, because Malik Washington really kind of brought us into the top 30, top 31-ish for class ranks. Right now we're ranked as the 31st class, and Malik Washington kind of brought us to that height, and we still have a couple more guys that are expected to commit. But whenever you bring in the 3rd player in the state of Maryland, a top 200 ranked player, 180th ranked nationally, and a quarterback and the 14th ranked quarterback in the country, your class is going to be a pretty good start. And so getting Malik Washington, getting 4-star Malik Washington in there and in their class really kind of skyrocketed our program. But I think we still have a couple more guys, a couple more 4-star guys that had the chance to go to Maryland that could really take this to the next level. Like, we could go from 31 right into about the 20, right around the 25s. In the last couple of years, we've been hovering in the mid 40s, which it's decent. It's not terrible, but it's nothing to write home about. It's nothing that's going to make us take the next step as a program. And so as I look through the current 2025 recruiting rankings in terms of the team rankings and the schools that are up top, of course, you're going to have Ohio State's number 1, Bama's number 2 right now, according to 247, Notre Dame's 3, Georgia's 4. Like, all those schools, they're always going to have top 5, 6, 7, 8, 9-ish classes. And there's a bunch of other places that are up there as well. One class that's really weird, one team that's really weird, and I don't know still how they are doing this is Rutgers. Rutgers currently is sitting as the 14th ranked class in the country, and I don't know what flip turned. I don't know what turned for Rutgers, but I wish that flip could switch for us. I don't know if it's an NIL thing, a coaching thing. I don't know what happened, but Rutgers has been able to land some really high level players in the 2025 class, and I don't really know exactly how they were able to do that, but Rutgers has been recruiting at a really high level. But I'm scrolling down and I'm looking for Maryland. And yeah, we're right at 31st, like I said, but we have a couple of guys that are about to skyrocket, and I think probably put us in the top 25. So right now we're at 31, Duke's at 30, UCF's at 29, Stanford's at 28, Arkansas is at 27, and South Carolina's at 26, and Florida State's at 25. These are the type of programs we want to be around, like Missouri's 24, Georgia Tech's 23, Texas. You know how well Texas recruits, and they're going to get a lot more guys, but they're 22. And right now, if Maryland lands the next two guys I'm about to talk about that I think that they can land, and I've talked about over these last couple of days, and they are crystal ball to Maryland, I think that will jump Maryland probably right into the 2025. I would guess maybe right behind Florida State, so that would put us at 26. I don't know exactly, though, how much we would skyrocket from this, but like I said, we just got Malik Washington, 4-star. But we are right in it for Bryce Jenkins, defensive lineman out of DC, the number 4 ranked player in DC, a 4-star on almost every single website, is heavily projected to go to Maryland. He makes his commitment not today, but tomorrow on July 6th. So he makes his commitment, and South Carolina, Rutgers, Tennessee is all in it, but Maryland is still the favorite, and he's 4-star on 247 composite, ranked 227th ranked nationally, 25th defensive lineman, 6'5", 315. We're going to land him, and that's another 4-star to the bunch, and that puts us in a better spot. That's going to skyrocket us to, I think, about 27, 26, but then we also know, all of you guys know that I talked about him yesterday. We have Zymeer Smith coming in as well, the athlete that we just decommitted from Bama. Tommy Lloyd, Brian Don, all have him predicted to go to Maryland. He is from Maryland, and he's in the 2025 class, of course, and he's ranked as a 4-star on 247 composite, ranked as the 8th best player in the state of Maryland. So Maryland could have 2 4-stars coming very soon. And I talked about Zymeer yesterday. I said, I think he's one of the best athletes in the entire class. Like, we're probably not going to get a more explosive player than Zymeer Smith, maybe under the Coach Locksley era. Like, this kid's a difference-making type of athlete. And so we land Bryce Jenkins and we land Zymeer Smith, 2 guys that I'm saying we're almost certainly, like I'd say, there's probably 80% chance that we land both of them. It's pretty high. Unless something changes, right now, these guys are for sure going to Maryland. So we're looking really good for those 2 guys, and that could skyrocket us. I think we could probably get as high as like 21st, 22nd, potentially. I don't know if we enter the top 20, but we will enter pretty high. But the thing is, there's still plenty of time to go. And another reason I think that Coach Locksley is going to end up with a top 25 class is, yes, these 2 4-stars that are coming in, Zymeer Smith and Bryce Jenkins. But let's not forget what Coach Locksley ends up doing on National Signing Day, which is still a long way away. He always seems to flip a guy or two. He always seems to be able to get a flip on a high level type of player. And so when I think of Coach Locksley in the past, when I think of him flipping Rakeem Jarrett from LSU, when I think of last year, him flipping Braden Lee from South Carolina, who was a 4-star on a lot of websites, and he's able to do that. He's often able to flip people. So I'm looking at Coach Locksley and I'm saying, there could potentially be some other flips that are coming. And, when we land a really good class, more people want to come. I've talked about it with Malik Washington. When we get Bryce Jenkins, when we get Zymeer Smith, knock on wood that we end up getting them, but we should be able to get them. But when we get those types of guys, it's a domino effect. I've talked about it. More guys want to come. So I think we'll be able to flip different players, but I think we'll also be more in the mix for some of these other guys that I'm looking at that we could potentially land. There's one player in Jalen Gilchrist that we really currently want to land. He's an offensive lineman. He's predicted to go to South Carolina right now. Is heavily predicted to go to South Carolina. He's from the Virginia area. But if somehow we could figure out a way to get him into Maryland, if we could find a way to make him flip, Coach Loxley's really good at messing with the South Carolina flips. And so for him being a 6'4", 290 offensive lineman, he's ranked 91st nationally, third in the state of Virginia. So he's a really high-level player. And Maryland is warm for him. If he's a guy that we might be able to potentially find a way to get him over to Maryland. And then there's also a guy like Javon McFadden, who's a really good player, who's on 3-star on 247, but he's a highly ranked 3-star. He's a 4-star on some people's recruiting websites. And he's got offers like Colorado, Ohio State, South Carolina, but Maryland's definitely in the mix for him. He's also a Maryland guy, so he's a DMV prospect. Blake Woodby's another 4-star. Remember, he decommitted from Ohio State. I don't see us landing Blake Woodby. I don't know how we can make a push for him, but right now Auburn seems like it's almost certainly going to be this where he's going to end up going to school. But there's still plenty of other guys that I'm not even talking about that are still out there. You think about Jeffrey Exenor, who recently committed to Penn State, and Malik Washington talked about potentially flipping him. And so he's another guy that maybe we can end up flipping. Penn State, I think we could utilize his skill better at Maryland if you see what Caden Prather and Ty Felton, who I'm about to talk about in a second, are able to do. And so I'm thinking that there's a chance maybe we can flip Jeffrey Exenor. There's still a lot of ways to go, and there's still a lot of different players to be able to commit to Maryland. But right now, I think where it stands is after these two guys commit, we could be in a really good spot in our 2025 class. And if we add another player or two that I don't see coming yet, or a guy that we flip, could be in a really good spot. And I think there's a really good shot at us doing that. And that's how we take the next step as a program, being able to flip some of these guys, being able to get some of these different guys, and being able to land a top 25 class. I think that's a goal. Year in and year out, if we're turning out top 25 classes, then you're going to be around a top 25 team. Usually the recruiting rankings usually correlate to about where you're going to be after a couple of years at a school. And so I think we have a really good shot at putting together a really good 2025 class. And it really started with Malik Washington and Iverson Howard and some of those other guys, but we have a chance to make it an even deeper class. Maryland has the most underrated wide receiver core in the whole country and the Big Ten. I will talk about that after this ad from eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships, and is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, LED headlights, and more. Whether into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. I really do believe when I say this, Maryland has the most underrated wide receiver core in the entire country. Nobody really talks about Maryland football on a national level, and I hope that we're able to kind of put up something that allows us this year for people to talk about us and people to give us a little bit more respect, but respect is earned at the national level. Of course, people talk about us at time, more at the Big Ten level, but you don't see much recognition nationally. But I saw this video on Caden Prather that this creator made on Twitter, and I thought it made a lot of sense, and I thought it was very true. It basically talks about how Caden Prather is basically one of the most underrated players in the Big Ten, and that basically NFL scouts really like him and his size and what he can do at the wide receiver position. And he's a guy that maybe not a lot of people are talking about, but he's a chance to get drafted in the next NFL draft. And I saw that video and I was like, thank you. Thank you for saying this. Thank you for bringing this out. Thank you for making this video, because it's absolutely true. Caden Prather and Ty Felton. I could argue that I think Ty Felton's more talented than Caden Prather. I think they're both really talented, really good players. And two of the leading receivers coming back in the Big Ten. And I think that they're one of the most underrated duos, two of the most underrated receivers. And I think our wide receiver core ends up being really underrated every single year. And you see a couple guys from Maryland wide receiver room that usually get drafted or ended up in somebody's camp almost every single year or end up making the team. And so people don't really, I'm not going to call us wide receiver you, but I think that this year, Caden Prather and Ty Felton are two of the returning guys in the Big Ten that are not getting enough love at all, that not enough people are talking about. They're two guys that are difference makers. And the thing is, the reason they're two of the most underrated duo in the Big Ten is because of their versatility and what they kind of contrast each other and how they balance each other out. They're a perfect complement to each other, which I think is another reason that makes them really underrated. I think when you look at Caden Prather, he's 6'4", 212 pounds, can go up and get it, can catch the ball over everyone. You don't see people like that normally. You don't see those types of athletes and those types of difference makers everywhere. Not everyone can get a type of guy like that that's 6'4", can catch the ball, can make spectacular catches. And we saw it last year. He made some huge catches against Ohio State as a one-hand catch, first touchdown of the game to give us momentum. Against Michigan, catches it 101 single coverage against Will Johnson, who might be a top 5 pick in next year's draft at Michigan. And so he was able to do it against the big guys, and that translates. That size and what he does translates. In his statistics last year, he was one of the leading receivers in the Big Ten, and he's back. And last year, he had 42 receptions for 666 yards, averaged 15.9 yards per catch, and had 5 touchdowns. He was a deep threat. He did it all, and he was a really good player. One of the most underrated players coming back in the Big Ten, and not enough people give him credit. Not enough people talk about him. That's why I'm not surprised at all that NFL scouts have him on their board. Ty Felton, someone that I bet next year ends up getting drafted. Ty Felton, he is the perfect contrast to Caden Prather because he's still big. He's still 6'2", 185, but Ty Felton can run. They say he's the fastest on the team, and he's probably the most underrated athlete in the Big Ten. And I guess he has to have another really big-time year, but he was an all-Big Ten type of player, 48 receptions for 723 yards, 15 yards per catch, 6 touchdowns, also had a carry for 16 yards. Maybe that's something we look to do more with some like sweeps and some end arounds and those types of things. But we look at Ty Felton, and I say, really good football player. Fastest player on Maryland football's team. He's electric. He can do all these different things. He can do the short game. He can do the mid game. He can do the deep game and run by you. He can catch the ball in different ways. He's a really explosive threat in the Big Ten. And I'm saying, why don't these guys get more? Why don't they get more love? And I know that they get some love for sure. They were preseason Phil Steele's preseason top 25, and they get some, or not top 25, but talking about the top 25 recruiting classes got me, but all Big Ten, and they're going to get some of those types of honors and stuff. But really, when you look at these two, if you could argue, like maybe outside of like Ohio State and maybe what Oregon has, or have the best returning wide receiver duo in the all Big Ten. Even Ohio State's, you could say, okay, Emeka Egbuka is maybe the best in the conference, but they don't have 2 guys, returners, that put up. I know they have 5 stars and Cornell Tate that's coming up, and the other kid, Jeremiah Smith or whatever, but you could argue Maryland has the best 2 returners in the Big Ten. You could argue that. I know Oregon has really good 2 as well, but you could argue that Maryland's returning wide receivers, that duo is some of the best in the Big Ten. So I really do believe that they are underrated. Let's talk about Maryland's newest quarterback commit. They added another quarterback. I will talk about that after this ad from the Gametime app. Have you ever wanted to go to a game at the last minute like a Maryland Terrapins game, but finding tickets is hard? I've been there before. Buying tickets to your favorite events shouldn't be stressful. Gametime is a fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. With killer deals on last-minute tickets and their best price guaranteed, you can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for the fun you'll have. Gametime has deals on the tickets right up to the start and even an hour after it starts. It's a place to find last-minute tickets and take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. So Maryland landed another 2025 class, and I love the pickup for the Terps. I kind of see it both ways. Part of me, realistically, I like to be honest. I'm not going to lie to you guys. Part of me is like, why do we kind of need another quarterback commit? It just seems a little bit like, I don't really know, but he has a little bit of story behind why he picked Maryland and everything. So I understand that, but at the same time, it's kind of like, okay, like, is this wasting a spot when we don't need it? I kind of feel that way a little bit, but I also like that we brought in this kid. His name's Jackson Hamilton, and he is from Texas, and he's a 2025 quarterback, ranked as a 3-star, ranked as a 99th best quarterback on 247 composite in the 2025 class. And I like it. I want to keep Malik Washington uncomfortable. That's why I like it. Obviously, not like actually, I wanted to be comfortable as a Maryland program, and I feel like that's a big reason why he chose it. He loves Maryland. He loves the football. He loves Maryland football, and so he put that together, and you get a guy that stays home in the DMV area in Malik Washington. That's a 4-star quarterback. That's a really good player. But it's always good to keep a guy on his toes. Make him think, make him compete. I think that's the number one thing. That's the word I was looking for. Make him compete. And I'm not saying that Jackson Hamilton is going to ever like be able to really realistically beat out Malik Washington, even though he's in the same class and everything. But I think that you want Malik Washington to want to prove that I'm the best quarterback in this 2025 class, even though you brought in this other kid, which I don't think anyone's worried about it or anything like that. But it's just like, you want him to feel kind of that fire underneath him to be like, yeah, I'm the best in this class and I'm going to prove it, and a little motivation. And I'm not saying that he's not going to have that normally. He seems like a kid that would, but I don't think it's a bad thing to add this guy, especially if you like his game. It's never bad to have quarterback depth. When I watch his film, he's a big time scrambler. He seems to like to scramble a lot. For yards, he's not like the fastest guy ever. Like, I wouldn't think he's as good of an athlete as Malik Washington, but he can definitely get up and down the field a little bit. He can definitely move, and he's on the smaller size for sure. He's definitely not the tallest kid, but he's still pretty thick for his height and everything. So he's a guy that I look at as kind of more of a runner, but he's definitely a dual threat type of guy. Like, he can definitely throw the ball. He definitely looks to run, though. It looks like a lot of time he throws on the run too, so he keeps his eyes down the field. He doesn't have like a rocket of arm. He doesn't have the biggest arm ever, but he still makes a lot of different throws. I wouldn't say he's able to make every throw on the field, but he's still a good player that I'm looked to add in the Maryland quarterback room. And you never know what can happen with these guys. Coach Loxley obviously saw something in him, so you never know what could happen with a guy like this. He had some other offers, some interesting offers. Texas A&M, he had Houston, he had Vanderbilt, and he had some smaller ones like Grambling State, Charlotte, Houston. So he's an interesting type of player. I don't know kind of his outlook. I can't say that he'll ever play for the Maryland program just because we have Malik Washington as our 2025 commit. We have Christian Martin in the 2024 class. But at the end of the day, it's going to be really hard to beat out Malik Washington. Anybody is, and what he brings. And if somebody does beat out Malik Washington, then it either we went wrong with Malik Washington for some reason, or just someone came in and was like, just crazy balling. So I just really don't see it happening, but it's so good to have another name in the quarterback room. So congrats, Jackson Hamilton. Big time. Maryland gets another different guy, and we'll see who the next commit is. Hopefully, when I come back in on Monday, Bryce Jenkins is a Terps, but we'll have to see. But that's all we have for today. Thank you for listening to Locked on Terps. Make sure you like and subscribe. We're here every day talking Maryland football and basketball. So thank you for listening to Locked on Terps.